Just when I thought it couldn't get any more immersive. Hello everyone, and welcome back once again to Half-Life 2 Alone. Only this time in the VR edition, which is insane. This has got to be among the most ambitious Half-Life 2 mods ever. For those who don't know, not only does it remove all NPCs in life, allowing you to explore the world of Half-Life 2 by yourself, it makes the world feel dead. I mean, look at this. There's a light in a barn in the distance. But other than that, we've only got the dark skies and the shadows below them. It makes you feel not even like you're the last person on Earth, but like you're the last ghost on Earth. And now it's made that even more captivating by having us actually be here ourselves. So here we are. Use the suit's flashlight to navigate. Yeah, well, when I was testing it, I was quite annoyed by the fact that you didn't tell me how to do that. We do it by reaching to our head and pressing the trigger. So it's kind of like having a headlamp. For now, though, we can just sit on the train, and I always thought it was kind of nice and fitting that this mod, just like the game, starts us on a train with the lights on. In a world where so many of humanity's lights have gone out, we have this one little bubble to start us off in before we go out into the big scary world. And just think of how many people love that moment of solitude where you're able to put your headphones in and sit down and zone out on the train ride to work. It's a similar feeling to what I've always felt this mod captures. It's a melancholic freedom. But sooner or later we are going to have to step out. For a moment, when you hear those rusty metal beams settling, it gives you that moment of recognition. Could there be someone out there? And then, do I want there to be someone out there? And then it doesn't matter because you realize there isn't. It's just the world rotting without you. You know, I actually don't think this mod will work as well for those who haven't played Half-Life 2. Because as you're walking through this, you can't help but be reminded of how busy and active, almost famously it was on this game's release. It is a very famous intro, but now all of that is gone. Still, playing it in VR, we are left with the immense sense of scale that it offered. Look at that! I have to keep reminding myself this isn't Gary's mod. I can actually reach out and get haptic feedback when I touch these things and use them to move it with my hand. That is so cool. Wait, can we get ourselves a drink? Did it work? Oop. Oh, hey, look at that. There's an aura that allows me to pick things up from a distance. Look at that. Well, I don't know if I want that. Is that something that I can change? Oof. I think we got ghosts or physics. Yeah, I can't get it to give me something again. Shining my light down there and hearing the distant ding of a train arriving. Okay, that's a little eerie even by this mod standards. Okay, that's an edit, but I couldn't resist. You know, playing in VR, I'm much more aware of the ambient sounds. The first time I did this, I'm pretty sure I turned off a lot of that, and eventually I put it back because it was too empty, it felt artificial. And there's a certain creepiness in that as well that people might enjoy. But this is immersive. For the next 4 or 5 hours, I feel like I'm here. Like playing a dream. Oh, I can't believe how often it feels like this in dreams. And they've actually nailed it. What I like the most is that there is no explanation given. It simply is. But it's not simply, like I said, removing all of the entities from the map. It's an entirely different feeling. Oops, there's a... Hey, was I still holding the phone? It just is. And it's best for us to go forward uncritically. The trained Nova prospect, that very different diverging path in the beginning of the game, now open, but there's nobody running the rails. I get achievement progress for Void Walker, although I'm not quite sure what that means. There's a blood stain on the tracks. And when we can actually come back here, unlike in the base game, we can actually see that this is a prison train. This kind of thing is what I mean about this mod being more than the sum of its parts. There's some vague implications, very rarely. But for the most part, everything we feel is intuitive. We're left to guess at what's going on here for ourselves. Is any of this real? Is there some concrete explanation, or is it all in our head? Well, I think some of that, to an extent, is influenced by which ending we get. But I never got an ending. Okay, now, I actually have immersive ladder controls on. So let's see how this... Yeah, look at that! And we get to the top, and it snaps us on. Okay, now we've got to use the physics. Of course, we've still got to get through most of the Half-Life 2 puzzles. But that's no problem for super strong Gordon Freeman. Yep. Come on. Crouch with the right thumbstick. And drop down. Oh, actually being here adds so much, doesn't it? It's been so long, it's easy to forget how revolutionary Half-Life was in terms of interactivity. Hip. Oh, this is so much fun. Hip. I mean, hey, look at any apocalyptic movie. What do people do when left to their own devices? Smash a bunch of stuff. Suddenly everything becomes so much heavier when you try to throw it. It arcs downward a lot more than you'd think. And we're loading. Ooh. Very, very quick loading. Things are so much darker now. I guess not that bad. I was talking about out the windows. Yeah, I don't know if it's just the way I had things configured before, and this whole mod is highly configurable. If we come over here, there are so many different options we can have. But what I'm talking about is the soundscapes. The soundscapes are definitely much, much more pronounced than I remember. I'll pick up that can. Glub, 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 glub. Now this thing does actually have its own song panel that we can use, and we will later on. But it's a balance. Sometimes I just like to enjoy the silence, other times that creeped out feeling starts to get to me a little bit, and then it might be good to have some tunes. Same reason you'd turn on the radio while driving down a deserted country road at night. Anyway, let's step out onto the world. It's so cool to me to take this intro sequence that was so iconic for being incredibly busy in the base game and turn it into the exact opposite. Like, not only is this mod really cool on its own merits, you almost couldn't pick a better game to do it in. Actually, what I said earlier, that wasn't true about me never achieving any of the endings. I thought so when I finished Half-Life 2, but there were still the episodes, and in fact, I did see the endings upon finishing Episode 2. What's cool about this is it treats them all as one cohesive, continuous thing, just like it would have been for Gordon, and that was always one of Half-Life's strengths. Being one continuous experience, not separated by cutscenes or any sort of transition outside of what we experience ourselves. And now it includes even the Portal Aperture Labs and more. But apart from a couple of panels, the world is truly dead. No lights on in any of the windows, all of it, any light we see, simply reflections from that dark sky. Well, let's let what lights remain guide us. Look, these doors have actually been opened so we can come inside now. And what served to be a whole scene now, the remnants, when you remove the people, you're left only with what they left on the floor. And it takes on a new context in this setting. Look at this. That was one of the things I read about in the patch notes, so apparently there's actually much, much more that's explorable in some of these apartments. See, now that for a little while now, the entire game has been playable in the Alone mod, the developer has been going back and adding their own creative touches. Not things that fundamentally change the way the game works, unless it's absolutely necessary, but just a bit more to do, a bit more reason to explore. And I'm really glad that they're recognizing that this has potential beyond just being a modification to its source material. This is a strange room. Oh, look. We can actually enter the breezeway above this. Imagine in this moment seeing the shadowy silhouette of a person walking down the road. In that moment, I'd have two thoughts. One, do I want to go say hi? And two, what would they think if they looked up and saw me? See, this is the kind of thinking that loneliness gives you. It makes you start to wonder if you are all your own ghosts. You know what really surprises me? The fact that the base Half-Life 2 stairs don't seem to be clipped. I mean, this may be a modded area, but they weren't in the train station either. Maybe that's an adaptation that came a little bit later. Well, on the other hand, we're free from the oppression of the Combine. Now we've just got to deal with the oppression of our own mind. It seems like some additional barriers have been thrown up. Unless I'm mistaken. Hang on, let's find out. Getting blinded by that light. This is so immersive. Drop down onto the box. Hey, that one actually broke my fall. Nope, I was thinking of this. As you've seen, not only does this mod allow us to walk unimpeded, it also gives us some alternate paths. I can still hear that train ding. Although our jump seems to be a little bit pathetic here, so maybe I can't quite make it up and over. Well, I could probably find something to stack up. This playground was always creepy, but at night in the desolate Eastern European winds, it's something else entirely. Horror baby? Get over here, you. I've gone ahead and disabled the auras for immersion. Oops. You and me, we need to stick together. And by stick together, I mean it would be way, way too hard to carry you too far. And there may be moments where we have to leave you, so let's make it our mission simply to get you to safety, okay? Because, well, I think in a time like this, it pays to keep the mind occupied. Let's just take a moment to take this in, though. Hey, look at that. That apartment up there, it's fully explorable. The last man on Earth sat alone. There was a knock at the door. In this case, there was a light in a distant window. We're not going to be able to get through here, are we? We got to see if we can get up there. All right, come with me. Don't worry, I'll keep you safe. With my, as yet, no weapons. Oop. I remain holding you through that instantaneous load screen. Yeah, right here. Here's how we do it. Really impressive, then, that it's still working as a 3D space, even technically across maps. Look at this. This is a whole area that simply didn't exist previously. Now, if we want, we can actually modify ourselves for exploring these areas. I find it's always useful to keep changing the settings on the flashlight. So if we go to Alone Mod Options, we can turn the flashlight strength to very low. The FOV to simply high. And I think that'll be a little bit easier on the eyes. We don't want too much bloom in our face. Just making sure the flashlight bug doesn't exist here. Actually, wait, is this a new area? No, this looks familiar. I think this might be the apartments we enter initially, but it's so hard to tell. Look, a door bricked from floor to ceiling. Can we actually see out these windows? Oops, I'm having a hard time walking here. Yes, surely we can. I'm sorry, I was trying to put you through the window to see better. I wasn't aware that you still had a currently 4-segmented skull. Is there anything we can use? Alright, let's sacrifice a bottle then. Yep! Man, that is some strong glass. I really like that we started out on the streets or in a fairly open-air building. And then we come in here, and I almost get the same feeling I get from the Silent Hill 2 apartments. Oh, wait, even better. Even better than a TV. Whoops. A cinder block. Cinder block, but is it just me, or does this world feel a bit bigger now? Maybe Gordon Freeman is just taller than me. Anyways. Wow, this is really not... There we go. Now we can see a bit farther. That's the feeling of changing positions like this, of seeing where I want to be and taking some time to get there. Being able to see my view from the opposite way there's just something in me that makes it feel like those views are somehow simultaneous, no matter how little sense that makes. Alright, horror baby, let's get out of here. This place gives me the creeps, and I've got to remember to hold you at arm's length. Because I'm pretty sure those movement issues that I'm having, they're caused by holding you too close to me, and it's like you're clipping into me. We can continue going higher up, too. Expansion of the apartments was one of the features that was talked about. Can we make our way around this barricade? Now coming through here, I'm able to see that it's all built up as a fortress meant to resist an incoming attack. But without anyone here, without signs of violence, it's like it never came. Oh. There's no getting up that way. What's funny is that it's actually one of the most directed parts of the game, being funneled through here in a big panic, seeing all the scenes and barely having time to process them. But here it's the exact opposite. We gotta find our own way. And I think this is it. Horror baby, no offense, but I really can't wait to put you down, because you make movement really difficult while I'm holding you, and I'm not sure why you have to be that way. This is actually feeling very, very Silent Hill right now. The environment, the subtle change in ambiance. Okay, thankfully it was only momentary, but it was just a little moment where I could almost hear moans in the wind. Something people often talk about when it comes to loneliness in game spaces, and in general, is the feeling that you're not really alone. The idea that somebody is watching you from somewhere, and that's reductive, I think, to the feeling that I get from this game. I don't feel like I'm not really alone here. It is a fear in the feeling of being truly alone. Maybe in the entire universe. And it's hard to explain. It's why before, when I was talking about the possibility of seeing someone in the distance, the fear wasn't that there could be somebody else out here, it's that this whole thing is a loop, that I am everything in this world. The ghosts of myself, as I put it. I don't know, I'm not really quite sure how to explain that better, but look, this is something else that's been done differently. Had we stacked those boxes or chairs or something and climbed over the fence, we would have been placed onto the street below. This would give us an opportunity to climb back up. Still getting used to the controls a little bit. I'm not sure if it does the thing like in Gary's mod where a sustained jump counts as a crouch jump. We can explore this upper level. Anything out there for us? Not that I can see. Oops. It's a little bit awkward having left, right, jump, and crouch all on the stick, because it is very sensitive. So a lot of the time I get movements that I don't necessarily want. These stairs, no less rickety, but remarkably supported my weight. We can even go backward a little bit. Okay. In earlier versions of this mod, this elevator shaft was actually empty. But it seems like that's no longer the case. Alright, Alright, horror baby, you'll be safe soon. That was a really cool light wipe that just went over you right there. Which you're gonna have to deal with because I don't have any baby wipes. Oops. You know, I've just registered something. Something that I've always often felt ever since I was a kid, and now I think I've identified it. When I'm alone in a building, somehow going underground, going into the basement makes it so much worse. And it's not just, oh, creepy basement. It's about being lost and buried. About making it feel so much less likely that I would be found were anyone to pass through. Looks like we don't need any help getting through the vending machine disguise. This elevator shaft is still empty. Maybe I'm thinking of that. It's been a year, so there's certain things I don't remember. At the same time, there's other things that I know have changed. But here we are, in Kleiner's lab. The thing about this mod is that it tends to recontextualize everything, and the developer actually has choices for how they go about portraying it. If the lights were out and the room still, it would be a creepier experience, a lonelier one. This makes it feel distant, like I'm looking at a partial memory. Anyway, let's try and teleport Horror Baby. You know we had to do it. So we place you right here. Can we do it? The interactions don't actually seem to be working correctly. Yeah, I don't know why the interact button doesn't seem to be working, especially since the control is the same for doors, and that is working. But I guess that means you lucked out today, Horror Baby. So you just go in your kennel, and I'll see you on the other side. Somewhere. Look, the mod is called Alone, right? Are we going to be able to take from here? We are! Okay, so something is just up with certain buttons, because interact is in fact working. So does that mean we've got to come through here? Now, this has definitely been reworked, because I'm pretty sure in the mod before we would have to actually like climb out through that window, or we had to do something that led to us bypassing a lot of the scripted elements of this part. Of course, the suit already in our possession. So let's see what's up here. Oh, this ladder thing is so cool. Actually having to go hand over hand adds such an unbelievable amount. I also think it's really neat because this is my first foray into Half-Life 2 VR. I mean, beyond what Gary's mod feels like, I've never experienced the game immersively in this way. Alright, let's... Here we go. Oh. It feels so much more dangerous to actually be here, doesn't it? I can feel my hands vibrating. This mod utilizes a kind of darkness, especially in its urban setting, that I love. It sort of reminds me of certain segments of 28 Days Later. Being able to look up and see a wall of darkness and realize that the sky is actually much brighter than it. Oh, that is a creepy, creepy feeling. The ding of that train just never seems to cease. And it starts to make me wonder if it's not an artifact of my own mind, a hallucination, the farther we get from the station. Oh, hey. The crowbar's here and nobody to toss it to us. But we've got it. Yep, there we go. And the weapon wheel, well, aside from being a wheel, works just like Gary's mod in terms of controls. Look at this. The light catches on the chain link fence and falls off to nothing but silhouettes beyond. Well, I guess the crows are still about. Thing is, we can get rid of the ambiance like that. We can get rid of the crows. Like I said earlier, every aspect of this, even more so in the PC version, is incredibly customizable. Because alone means something different depending on who you are. Oh look, we have to actually swing it. And there's actual haptic feedback as well. That is amazing. See, for me, being alone here, it feels all at once. It feels all at once hopeless, and at the same time freeing. As if I have the whole world to myself, but I'm just trying to distract myself. I know that I can't do that forever. I guess the web of trains that would be here have left the station. Let's look around a little bit. Oh, hey, check it out. We can actually enter this. I'm not sure if our sprint is infinite either. It doesn't seem to be draining our suit energy. Oh my... Look. That is so cool. This is where we first entered. Or at least I think it is, yeah. This is the main train station. Look at that, the lights of that train, the safety bubble, now distant and inaccessible even if we're right here. Like, hey, there's no turning back now. It is such peak dream logic to have some comfort, some object that we desire and need to get to, and be so close but so far at all times. Okay, crowbar, it's time for you to do your thing again. Let's just wind you up and hip, 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 hip. You know, for a 20-year-old game, I almost can't believe how good this feels. Down once more. But I think we'll put our deadly weapons away. I mean, why concern ourselves with a threat that's not coming? We'll have an opportunity to heal if we need it. Whoops, I was carrying a splinter from that door. Or I extracted it from my hand. Thank goodness for gloves, right? Oops. Huh. Keep forgetting I have the Force. Crowbar time again. Wow, that is a loud noise. Is it weird to say you appreciate the scale of Half-Life 2 a little more with no people or events? Because I'm remembering all the things that happen in these hallways, And I'm realizing that in their absence, they just feel so much bigger. The whole world does. You wouldn't think people would take up much space in a world like this, but apparently they do. Hey. Hey, what caused physics to act on you? Maybe I should be worried about others, especially as I was just thinking about their impact on the environment. It's in moments like this that I can't help but think of all the windows that are looking down at me, and how there's always the possibility I miss one that has a light coming from it. Okay, no more train hopping here. We can just go right down into the tracks and climb up. Something I've learned over time, and this is true especially in games, but in movies as well, is that a focus on the processes of something can make it feel so much more weighty and impactful, and so much more immersive, like the viewer is there. In this case, simple things like being able to pick up and play with objects or go hand over hand for the ladders. The more you get into the nitty-gritty of how an action is performed, rather than just pressing a button, the more you can engage the player with it, even if it's something very simple. Okay, we've got some ammo. Now, is it ever going to give us a gun? Unless I may have missed it somewhere. Normally, we would have gotten it a little bit back in that hallway. Okay. We don't have to worry about blowing things up. We can simply... Yeah, didn't quite know what to do with you. Toss you off to the side. I really feel like I'm supposed to have a gun right now. I can jump back. In fact, it's all I can do. Huh. Oops. Why is my jump so pathetic? There we go. Well, here we go a-crouchin'. Will it recognize it if I actually crouch? It will. Okay, it just snapped me into a crouching position. And oddly enough, look at this. It actually makes the space feel so much more cramped than it would. Like I can feel the fact that I'm prone. Oops. Take that, and that, and that. Come on. I actually feel, because it stops when it contacts the walls, I don't have any leverage. There we go. Okay, let's keep it going, preferably without you banging on any and everything in my vicinity. Oh, I hope that slant is enough to break my fall. Yep. Redirected energy. Gordon, you should know this. You're a physicist. You should know exactly when you're being fine. Do you think before Gordon makes a jump, he sort of wiggles his hips a little bit like he's doing the cat math? I bet he does. Some tempting HEV energy under the stairs. We are at Monster Alert 5. There we go. Okay, we don't need a flashlight right here. I'm going to try to use my flashlight less. If the environment can light itself, I find it's usually best to just let it do its thing. A flashlight can be incredibly atmospheric in a totally dark space, because it's the beacon, it's the guide that you set for yourself. But when the world wants to guide you, I say let it. Oops. Okay, we pulled you down. Over you go. Yeah, I'm sure that's not a hazard for any passing trains. On the bright side, if I hear a train crash, I'll know that I'm not the only one. And then immediately wish that I was. Do you ever have dreams like that? I have dreams like this all the time, where I do something stupid or reckless and it causes a whole problem. And I'm just thinking, I am in so much trouble. I would do anything to revert the last few minutes of my life and not have to deal with the consequences of this. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Speaking of consequences, my flashlight isn't working. Okay, I would be troubleshooting bugs right now, but I actually noticed this the first time I played. Your flashlight, it stops working during this section. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, nothing happens that would force that to be the case. Come on. But hey, it's a dream, right? Go with the flow. It's not like you have any other choice. We have to jump down into the canal waters, and I still don't have a working light. Okay, dive. Oh, thank you. There we go. And just at the same moment, the wind switches to a lighter ambiance. But it is dream logic, in the moment of your worst fear being to be left without light, are you unable to do it for no reason? It's just, that scripted thing has always creeped me out because it comes with no warning, no explanation. It doesn't even tell you that it's doing it until you try. And it doesn't tell you when you can use it again. And as far as I know, that's the only place in the mod where it does that. So there's always been a sort of eerie confusion about what the intention even is. If I couldn't get any leverage in the vent, I really don't think I'd be able to get any leverage while swimming. Hey, what is this like while underwater? I feel like I shouldn't be getting myself full of this stuff in my nose and mouth. Well, I will say that the underwater controls are actually a fair bit better than in Gary's mod. In that I can actually have some say in where my body goes. Well, there are some fires burning still. I don't seem to have lost any health, so that's good. Oh boy. This is really gonna be something in VR, isn't it? Because, you know, I really get a sense of the giant, super heavy object that's right above my head, which I now have to weaken the supports of. Oh. Especially being able to feel every impact of this thing run up my arm. Ugh. Yeah, that was as scary as I expected. But at a certain point, you've just got to do it. Where am I going? I'm not quite sure where I'm going. Oh, there we go. Alas, poor Darwin. I knew him well. Ugh. You remember how I said the sounds are quite a bit more impactful using the index as headphones, having that 3D surround sound? Yeah. Ugh. You know, there may not be any feet tracking, no haptics there, but it still very much feels like my boots are sinking into the mud, and I'm having to fight to pull them up. Okay, so our goal is to get up onto that concrete walkway. How did you get there, and what is the point of this drainage? Because it's not really drainage, is it? I don't know if I've seen anything else that nails the lighting such that it is so realistically low contrast of the moonlight. I mean, sure, the sky itself may be a bit more dramatic than that, but it really allows for that sleepwalky feeling. That's what this mod has always reminded of, is the depression walks of my teenage years. It just feels cold in the way it comes across. And so many other games that have tried to get a feeling like this, well, they're designed by artists. They're meant to draw the eye and be interesting. With this, it's almost going out of its way not to be noticed. It's all there for you to see, but it's all in the form of shapes and silhouettes. In other words, it has the lighting of a lonely winter walk. Going down the streets of the city when it's too cold for anyone else to be out there. Maybe the occasional passing car, but other than that, it's just you and your hoodie. And it is always a hoodie. Sure, I could use a little bit more suit. Can we interact with the radio? Well, it's acting like we can, but none of those interactions have exactly been working out for me today. Anyway, time to become a Ninja Turtle. Yep. It's definitely a different experience depending on whether you've played Half-Life 2 before. I mean, I can't imagine there's many people with the awareness to seek out and find a mod like this that haven't already played Half-Life 2, you know, since it requires Half-Life 2. But I really would like to pick the brain of anyone who has only done it this way, especially if they've only played the VR version. Because it definitely does play off of nostalgia to an extent. The nostalgia of revisiting some place that is alien when first you visit, but by this point is old hat. I mean, most players have probably been through this dozens of times. And so to have that recognition be sort of turned on its head, I think that's a big part of the uncanny feeling. I say a big part. It's not the only factor by any stretch. To expand on the feeling that I had before about basements, about being so alone that we somehow made ourselves more alone, there is, I guess, a certain freedom in that. I mean, normally we would look at something like this and say, no way, if I ended up trapped down there, nobody would ever find me. But maybe you gain a little of that freedom back when you think, well, nobody's going to find me anyway. What difference does it make if I break my leg in some godforsaken sewer or on the street? Okay, I was really expecting to dive deeper. Thankfully, it's only about chest height. I can hear something. Although I can't determine the source. It's like a static noise almost, or a hissing. Well, best not to dwell on it. I've got the lights on in my room. It's in the early morning hours. The sun isn't up yet. And every once in a while, every time I stop talking, I realize, like, wow, I'm here. It feels like I'm here. And every time I do stop talking, it makes me think about that thought I've had from time to time, where one of these days I'm going to go to take off the headset and nothing's going to change. Whoop! I've been decapitated. That's a change. That's good, right? Excuse me, I'm trying to get over here. I really do enjoy the freedom to explore some things now that there's no scripting for you to break, or at least minimal scripting for you to break. It's another way it contributes to this feeling like a transformative project rather than just something that is something that's an alteration. Well, we found the source of the buzzing at the very least, so that's good. Oh, this alternate path actually takes us farther than I thought. I can't move. Oh, my feet are like sticking. I can't move at all. Why not? Hello? Hello? There we... Are you guys seeing this? What's happening to me right now? I can't move back. I can't... Okay, by crouching, I was able to move. Okay, I'm not messing with that cursed corner anymore. Instead, I need to get back over there. Or something? No, I guess not. Okay, how did a train car end up here? That's the real question. I've just noticed there's another bloodstain. And another. And another, culminating in this wreck. I didn't even notice that a second ago. See, things like this really play into the idea that this is a Gordon Freeman nightmare. I don't remember how it actually works out, but I do remember that that was one of the theories that I read the first time I explored this. And it was really interesting to me because what else would Gordon Freeman have a nightmare about? Besides a world, an empty world that he failed to save. I can't figure out where I'm supposed to be going, though. Then again, maybe the problem is me looking around up here where I shouldn't be. But over here is... Oh, right, I remember now. Aha, that was hiding. Even more so in the dark. But that's why it's got its own light. You have no idea how much more satisfying the physics are now that I can physically reach out and push. Down there, you. Wow, that is incredible balance. So majestic, like a ballerina. Okay, the view gets a little bit jittery when you try to swim while crouched. I think it doesn't quite know what to do with my position. Look at me, I'm walking on water. Hey, now I'll finally start getting the respect I deserve around here. Okay, if we get too much farther, I think what I'm going to start doing... Also, I've just realized that Horror Baby was innocent, because that wasn't what was causing the movement issues. I think sometimes it goes into a crouch mode without telling me. There we go. Yep. Yep. Again, those jumps are hard when you have 3 other controls bound to the same sensitive stick. Come on. Alright, this time we'll try it while sprinting, which seems to make it the opposite of easier. Come on! Oh my god. Yeah, stick controls, not the best for this. I would much rather it be on a button. But it looks like we've made it now. Okay. Physics puzzle. This may be the most basic thing in the world, but I remember in my youth thinking this was absurdly cool. Come on, reach out. There we go. I was like, come on, if Gary's mod lets me carry 2 objects at a time, this has gotta let me, right? Oops. Oh my... Something weird happens often when I'm holding objects where it just glides. It's like I take my finger off the stick and it doesn't actually... it doesn't register that I shouldn't be moving anymore. Like it just holds whatever my last input was. So it's weird. In some ways, it feels a lot more refined, a lot more like it's supposed to be VR than Gary's mod. And in other ways, it's incredibly janky in ways that Gmod isn't. Not sure quite how many we need. Just a little bit more. Gordon, how much do you weigh exactly? Apparently light enough to land on a box and not break it, but still heavy enough that you require all these cinder blocks. Yep. So logically, if we dropped a few less than the number of cinder blocks that are on there on a box, it too would not break. Join me next week for tips on how to determine if someone is a witch. I was all prepared to have a whimsical time sliding down the trash slide. Instead, it's just as sticky and mucky and gross as you'd expect. Everything about the early Half-Life levels is a physics playground. And boy, does that play dividends. I really wonder if the devs of this game knew just how well this was going to age. I mean, imagine going back in time and telling them that, hey, years from now, I'm going to be playing this in virtual reality, and it's all going to be officially supported on your platform. I don't believe the VR mod is made by Valve, but I think it is officially approved of by Valve. Well, I suppose it would have to be, because you can actually install it straight from Steam. I think that's another reason for the longevity. They're one of the earlier devs to really embrace modding. I don't know how common this was, but in the communities for games I was in the early and mid 2000s, there were some forums where you could be banned for even talking about mods. And some games that could have had some longevity just ended up fizzling out, I think, as a result. They had their time, and then that was it. You know, when I said I was getting ready to become a Ninja Turtle, I don't think this is what I meant. Although... you know what? Maybe now would be a good time to start looking into that song panel. What do you think? So let's go over here. And this is one of the cooler things about it. This is the new and revamped song panel, and we have so many options, just like everything else. So what I did last time I played this was I just added everything. As it turns out, it seems like quite a lot of songs have been added since I last did this. If I have one request for this panel, it would be a shuffle button, and maybe there is a way to do it, but I have not seen it. But anyway, I guess we'll just play the playlist from the start. Well, that's definitely an atmosphere of dread. Immediately. I'm sure it is theoretically possible to mod in your own songs, but the playlist, for the most part, is an entire impressive range of some of my favorite dark ambient sounds I've ever heard. This just feels like a jump scare waiting to happen, doesn't it? I had said earlier that it's sort of like putting on the radio in a car on a lonely road trip, but that's not exactly accurate. Because every song in this playlist, it's here to enhance the mood it wants you to feel. The fact is, it's just not going to let us off that easily. I will say the audio mixing is a little bit odd. I mean, certain sounds like getting caught in the muck, the splashes are so loud, and yet our footsteps so quiet. But then again, maybe that's a bit of a learned adaptation. If you're anything like me, when you're all alone in silence, your footsteps can kind of scare yourself. So you try to be as quiet as possible. When there's no other sound, you become very aware of how loud you are. Well, when you're trapped in the sewers, up is always good. It also may not always be where we're going, unfortunately. Well, I don't have nearly as much need for collectibles, especially as we've got 100 suit. And even now, I'm not quite sure what suit does for me, since the flashlight nor the sprint seem to drain it. And maybe it can absorb some fall damage in a pinch. Yeah, very much so. This playlist is not so much a distracting radio as something that forces you to lock in. But it's just like Silent Hill. What's oppressive to some is almost like a weighted blanket to others. I'm in the camp where I feel both. Sometimes depending on the moment, and sometimes simultaneously. Oops. But that's what the whole channel hinges around, isn't it? It's that feeling that there's a danger, but not right now. Sometimes that danger is really in the form of a more persistent dread rather than anything coming to kill me. Because when I'm terrified, I don't have time to feel this way. Oops. I don't know why it's not letting me get closer. Look at this, there's even a light still on. I feel almost tempted to just lie down right here. It's cozier than anything else. Although I can't imagine the smell is anything too pleasant. Well, I guess I'm not going that way. I felt that in my ankles. Oh, hey, can we pick that up? Oh, I suppose not. I just realized the crowbar has a tendency to kind of stick in objects it hits. That's a nice touch. The damage even seems to scale with how hard I swing it. There's always just a bit more of an awareness in the brief moment between songs in the playlist, isn't there? Locked. Or is it locked? That's just gonna have to open. There we go. Being down here to me feels like one of those dreams where you struggle to walk. Where you get the feeling that it's always been like this. You can't imagine a time when you were more mobile, and you just sort of have to pull yourself along the floor or the walls. Oh, great. An object I have to break on the floor. And it seems we're going down once again. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it in there. Look at that. The hitboxes are such that it actually got stuck in between the grates. Come on. It's not like I even needed anything from up here. But hey, may as well get into the spirit of exploration, right? I've always been a little bit weirded out by this little room here. I mean, it doesn't even seem to serve a purpose, just something to come down here and look down below. An unnecessarily curved staircase, it's like so fancy for no reason. Actually, the sewer system in this game reminds me almost of catacombs. Yep. You know, it's only just hit me. I think I actually associate the genre of dark ambient with nostalgia in a way. I don't know, maybe it's just some of the things I consumed as a kid, but even if it's not really there, I almost subtly feel like I can hear VHS distortion within it. Well, that's something I'll need to examine more as time goes on. I have no idea if I can actually drown in this mode, but I'm not looking to find out. There we go. See, this is something that this is something that Half-Life Alyx did extremely well. And it makes such a difference in VR games, and it's being able to reach out and touch something and have it stop your hand. Psychologically, it obviously, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. It can't stop your hand from moving forward physically, obviously, but it can trick your brain into thinking that you've stopped moving it. And I never would have realized just how much that adds until I played Half-Life Alyx. I'm struggling to speak, but I'm also trying to do minimal cuts. We've got a lot to get through after all. Oh, no. Well, it doesn't matter. We made it where we need to be. I actually think I am going to go ahead and lower the volume on the music a bit, but that might change later. The issue that I always end up having with the sound in this is that you end up where you want it quieter in most instances, but then there's this problem of the vehicles in the game. But we can always just adjust it. The crowbar is an incredibly useful tool, and so many video game protagonists could save them a whole lot of time looking for keys. Now, if I recall, we can actually crawl through here. This is purely for exploration's sake, seeing as I don't actually have need of items. Into the pit once more. A ladder. You know, I'm a pretty big fan of this ladder system. A lot of VR games struggle with this, where when climbing with your hands, it can be difficult to get up onto the ledge. With this, it just sort of does it for you. Oops. This is a bit of an issue, which is unless I hold my hands to my sides, it tends to think I'm grappling onto them before I'm even there. These new areas we're able to explore are so interesting, like there were civilian footpaths up here at one time. Look at this, a playground right above the open sewers. It's like this takes place in the world of Infra. All these buildings just staring down at me. It's like a tombstone that's capable of looking back and judging as you pass. It's a feeling I just can't shake, no matter how little sense it makes. I feel watched when I'm on the surface, and I feel even more crushingly alone when I'm below. I guess if there's one thing I'm really trying to get across with this, it's the sleepwalking nature of what this feels like. Because that's really at the core of the experience, and I'm trying to find different ways to say it, but you really just have to be direct at a point. This game makes me feel like letting my eyes hang and my head droop, and just slowly hold that button and move forward. Okay, 2 vents. Which one gets us where we're going? Because I'm going to be honest, I don't remember this at all. Come on. You can do it. You can climb into this small space. There we go. Ow! You have no idea how funny it is to fall through the ceiling and land on top of some stacked objects in a perfect slob squat. Alright, timber. Okay, we could blow all of this up. And in fact, we may need to. There may also be an alternative. Oh, come on. Okay, so we have a problem here. Yes, I'm gonna ask you to please pay no mind to the fact that I was swimming forward while you could hear my footsteps of walking underwater. Footsteps underwater. Okay, that's a really cool band name and a creepy concept, isn't it? Okay, now the question is, are we going to be able to make that jump? flicker of this flashlight. That soundtrack, so distant and melancholic. Like passing by a church and hearing the organ play for a funeral service. I guess what I'm thinking now is that it has the effect of making this all feel transitional. It has a way of making you recall memories. I'm going off of the soundtrack now, of looking back on your entire life, about how everything led up to this moment, and once more, the game this is a mod of feels so fitting for that, because it's the game where you go as one continuous perspective for so long. Life is very much the same way. If anything, it's more broken up because of sleep. And so at certain points you find yourself looking back and thinking, how did I end up here? How has it come this far? And in the case of something like this, is this really where it ends? I guess you could say, from a certain perspective, that life really is just one long, weird dream. Of course, you only think about that stuff when you have a moment. Which is why we've just got to keep talking. Because those are some very distressing thoughts. You know what keeps the bad thoughts at bay? Smashing stuff. And it's okay in the absence of many people to claim property rights over this stuff. Okay, nothing of interest here. Come on. Why are you having such a hard time grabbing? Maybe I'm too close. No, my left hand, it just doesn't want to do it. Why? Why does my left hand not want to grab? Okay, there. What is going... I'm having, like, weird, inconsistent jank with certain aspects at times. Like, now I can only grab with one hand at a time. I'm just having to slowly feel my way around this ladder until I hear my hand grab. Which is strange. I don't know why this one in particular isn't working correctly. Okay, we can very easily mess ourselves up here, so let's be careful and be aware of what's holding these things up. Because putting the weight in the wrong spot could send us plummeting below. Life is so much easier when your feet are one flat circle. This doesn't get us where we need to be. Or does it? Yes, this is actually a separate room. Yep. And hey, at some point we ended up with 99 suit. Thanks for taking the hit, suit. Whichever fall that was. Maybe it was when we fell into the water room onto the barrels. Look at that, there's a huge water tower towering above us. Which, good job, that's sort of what you do. This looks absolutely toxic, maybe we try and avoid that. Funny how the soundtrack has always seemed to be appropriate to the setting. I don't know, I sort of associate this one with a sense of curious danger. And that's definitely what's going on here. Although that's the thing about music, you put it over a situation and you kind of fill in the gaps yourself. It may seem like such a small thing, but the music playlist and having controls over it, rather than the soundtrack being scripted throughout, is a huge thing that, oddly enough, I find adds to the replayability. It means that even if you have your own idea of Alone, you can still get a different experience out of it on a different playthrough, including no music. An empty shantytown, essentially. Dwellings of sheet metal and scavenged wood. Even saying a shantytown seems a bit generous. We don't need to eat or sleep. As far as I can tell, we can't drown. It takes something more acute to do us in moments like this. You know, we've only been wandering for a short time, and it feels like it's been a whole day, more than a whole day. Imagine what it would be like to slowly realize that this could go on forever. The sense that you'll finally be able to satisfy your every curiosity but never have anyone to share it with. I was just reading about someone who in the 80s was driving up in Maine and his car broke down or ran out of gas or something, and he just wandered off into the woods and stayed there for 27 years. And during that time he would mostly break into cabins in order to find supplies. And he just did his own thing for all that time. Now, I'm sure that was just like the last straw. That just presented the opportunity, and it wasn't entirely a spur-of-the-moment decision. But I often think about what it must have been like for him to really be by himself for all that time. And he did say in the book that was written about his life that over time there is a disconcerting loss of self because there's no one to perform for. We don't realize how much of our personality is crafted for the benefit of others, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you start to see those things stripped away and it just becomes bare survival, a being that exists, it's so machine-like. Would we eventually lose that sense of wonder? Maybe not if we don't have to take care of ourselves. But certain aspects may be lost, I don't know. Like I said, things you think about when there's nothing else to think about. And I also think about the fact that he's been back in civilization for 13 years. What does it feel like? Probably like waking up from one of those dreams that feels like you've lived a lifetime, right? Being able to think back to those 27 years. During that time, not knowing that you would eventually be back in a comfortable home. And, I don't know, maybe the memories of living in the woods all that time don't seem real. Anyway, we've got a vehicle now, so at least we can explore the end in style. Oh, and hey, this is a good change. It would seem as though there's not actually a whole lot of noise from the vehicle itself. I don't know if that's a deliberate choice or if it's just something to do with VR, but anyways, I'm gonna go back and actually change our flashlight settings. I'm gonna put it up to high brightness and very high field of view. And we can mess with that as time goes on. But I'd say this works for headlights. And you know, ordinarily I tend to get motion sick when it comes to using vehicles in VR. That may still be the case after a while. Standing up makes it feel kind of like a Flintstones car, but this is weirdly smooth and satisfying. It may seem weird to say, but you could almost describe the tone of this mod as, like, dark whimsy. It's not just post-apocalyptic. It's almost fantasy. Oh, no. I'm really having a problem with the controls right now. Okay, so it's A on the left hand to get out. And when walking around, this flashlight seems entirely too bright. Look at that. We've been in this for, what, an hour or two? That sun is always threatening to rise over there. It kind of makes me wonder if it truly is nighttime, or if there's just a thick layer of dark clouds in the atmosphere. Whoa! Nothing like a virtual reality fall to get the stomach dropping. Okay, brace! Oh, I actually felt the need to hide behind the metal bars. Alright, well, we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't get out to look. Hey, did you hear that? The soundtrack itself seems to become muffled when you're underwater. Okay. Come on. I keep trying to turn on my flashlight when I'm close to this thing. You know, it might be kind of a cool thing for a wishlist for this mod, being able to have separate flashlight settings for when you're in a vehicle and when you're not. I'm not actually sure if that's doable because of the way Source handles flashlights, but it might be interesting. These bloodstains all throughout. Some of them are simply because something violent happened here in the main game, and some of them have actually been added by the creator. But it's always interesting to think about because, I guess for Gordon, much like ourselves, places like this have left an impression in our mind. So the Gordon dream theory, it's very interesting to look at these places from that perspective. I mean, just think about what a brain soup of an experience he's having. He wakes up one morning, goes to work, and in one continuous experience, before he's even slept, he's 20 years in the future fighting off an old alien apocalypse, the occupation of something from another, essentially, dimension or universe, or however all that's supposed to work. I think Zen is another dimension. The Combine are just out there somewhere. Well, fastest way down is down. Yep. This is why you look before you leap. I don't know why I find that so funny, the slow sinking. It's like quicksand. Out of my way, boat. My boat's cooler. Come on. Every single time. Alright, we're gonna have to use these buoyant barrels to raise this ramp. Never mind how we're able to pull those things downward. That's actually a Herculean feat, isn't it? Now, can we find anything else in that drain pipe? That shadow got me a little bit. See, it's not like one of those horror games where it uses its quiet moments to build the anticipation of a jump scare, but it is still, nevertheless, one of those things where the longer you go without seeing anything, the more likely it is to stop your heart if something were to happen, even the most minor of things like that. And boop. It makes sense that this would be an evolution for Half-Life. Like, even simple things, like being able to reach out and sort of slot my hand up and under something, makes me feel so much more a part of this world. And the feeling of life that Half-Life 2 had was part of what made it so revolutionary. I mean, in an age where games are always trying to innovate and make things feel more lifelike, it was able to do it through, like, smaller things you wouldn't even think of. And so too, I suppose, does this mod. It actually, the way it shakes your controllers during impacts, it adds so much. I remember when I was a kid, my first console, like, that was actually, like, mine was the PS2. Before, I would play on my dad's Sega Genesis. And I took it out, I was playing with it, and I would get hit sometimes, and the controllers would vibrate. And I thought to myself, oh, that's cool. And at a certain point, like, my mom kept looking around the room anytime it would happen. And I realized now what she was looking for was the source of that buzzing. She couldn't figure out what it was. And eventually, she figured it out when, are the controllers vibrating when you hit something? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, that is so cool. So I guess, people who grew up with, like, 70s and 80s video games knew just how innovative that was. Alright, this way. Ugh. The controls are a little bit sticky because it's tied to like both my head position and the stick. Yep. Yep. Oh, I would play an entire game of just this. I've been riding this airboat through this level for half my life, and it's never felt as cool as this. It's almost cool enough to make me forget that I'm riding in a dirty old canal in the ruins of society. Look at that, there is so much gap between those buildings, allowing the morning light to shine through. Like being cornered by sentinels of this world. And there's that citadel ever present. One of the things about Half-Life 2 was that it cemented how continuous it all was by having the Citadel be that one thing that's visible from just about everywhere in the game. Here, it's almost going out of its way to be harder to see. It barely stands out against the sky, but it's nevertheless always present. There's something that just feels so wrong about being the only loud thing in a quiet world. Okay, now before we move on, once more, we have to do this little dance. Flashlight strength was actually already set to low. I think we had FOV on medium before. Very low. That was actually not working too badly. Perfect soundtrack now for the dark, whimsy part of the game. Oh, I chose such a good time to play this. Immediately after finishing Silent Hill 2. I guess there's a piece in this as well. Sure, the world is empty. It's a world where we failed. But I guess for all the horrors we've been through, I guess there's a piece in knowing that it's over now. It's almost like a completely neutral ending. Depending on how you look at it. For better or worse, the world is quiet now. How's our health doing? Perfect. We could get ourselves some grenades. My oh my. Well, that's an upgrade from the crowbar. Now I'm just thinking, imagine modding this to use like Cry of Fear or Silent Hill 2 soundtracks. I suppose out of the two, Silent Hill 2 works much better for this. Because the whole point of ambient tracks, of course, is that it's the kind of thing that can run at low volume in the background and just allow itself to enhance or even color your mood, rather than being something that you actively listen to. An ambient playlist, maybe you don't even know that it's really running. until you stop to focus or change. Now here's an issue. How are we doing this? Well, not like that, that's for sure. Might still work out. Everything worked out in the end, see? Dropping a grenade at your feet isn't as bad as it's cracked up to be. But hey, we can immediately get our stuff back and move on. All is right with the world. But man, the real sense of panic that went through me in that moment, just realizing that was loud, it's getting louder, and I'm not sure why. As before, all of these feelings are adjacent to the feeling that we're going to be found, that we're going to get something's attention, but it's not so much that. I'm not worried about anything finding me. I guess I'm worried that my presence here is an aberration. I wonder why I'm here, and I feel like any change that I make, any space I take up, is upsetting the natural order. And that's not just me being all English teacher introspective. It's an innate feeling that comes out in this situation, and I really wonder why. Well, I must say, I'm not a tremendous fan of hearing doors I've opened close behind me. I know they're on a timer, but it doesn't stop the feeling. Okay, I was trying to see if that bridge is out. I think it is. Nope, let me down. Thank you. Over time, I'm going to get faster and faster at doing this transition. So let's say it was high, very high. Off we go, the red eye beckoning us forward. You know, we came out of that self-nading surprisingly unscathed. All right, back behind the bars. It really is something else to be able to feel that impact. There's just something about smokestacks and power lines against the night sky, isn't there? Yep. I feel like I'm doing a better job of this now than when I did the playthrough for the Patreon. Then again, there's not a bunch of combine hunting me and spraying me down from the sides. For some reason I wasn't able to turn right there. Question, can I actually turn my light off while in here? Well, not really, because I technically don't have hands to reach up to my head. Hey, we recharged our suit. Well, I guess it's true what they say. If you drop a grenade at your feet, in a couple minutes there'll be no consequences. Probably means different things in real life than in this scenario. And in this moment, we can simply open the gates and drive through. But do I want to? This is all about the exploration. And if I recall, this is actually where we get the revolver in the game. Look, I'll tell you what, using the grenade to open that was nice, but I don't think it's something I want to be using as a matter of course. So, set everything to where we need it. Hello? Oh, right. I always get this wrong. I always park over here. In reality, we need to go the other way. Yep. Soundtrack. Soundtrack, you've gone from creepy and comfy to just sort of creepy. You understand why that makes me a bit nervous, right? Okay, yes. Yes, yes, yes. There we go. Oops. Now we have the means. We also have a laser sight. Python Elite. It's actually crazy. These weapon models for VR seem almost a little bit too detailed for Half-Life 2. They were definitely made a bit later because the actual default Half-Life 2 models don't actually draw the offside of it. So if you were to look at the models, it's just completely clear. You see through. There was almost like a long scream. I only realized at the end of that it was on the soundtrack. Or was it? Timed right. A sound can easily disguise itself among other sounds. Now this is creeping around the docks music. Now, of course, I may not have as much insightful commentary as the first time I did this, but I wouldn't mind this turning into essentially a VR non-stop motion music video. Although I will say this was worth doing because I am finding the experience to be very, very different from the first time. And you know, as far as the dream idea goes, not just in terms of the story that this is a nightmare had by Gordon, but in terms of the dreamlike nature of this for the player, even having music here is not exactly breaking that illusion. I mean, have you ever had a dream that had music or a song? It makes perfect sense in the moment, but when you try to play it back to yourself after you wake up, even if you can, which isn't a guarantee, a lot of the time it's far less cohesive than it seemed. But that's the thing about dreams. They work on an emotional level. It is pure emotion, essentially put through your brain's own visualizer. That's the frustrating thing about dreams, though. They can be so inspiring when they speak to you, but they might speak to you in a way that won't translate to anyone else, maybe not even to yourself when you're no longer in the dream. This is a bit more open than what I remember. And maybe I just never bothered to look. There's got to be some way through here. Well, I say that, but we don't even need to be here anymore. Yeah, this right here, I think, would be the gatehouse. Of course, no interactions now. Look at that, we can actually man these guns! And now there's nobody to stop us. I mean, I feel like this is the inevitable conclusion of all end-of-the-world, last man on Earth fantasies, right? I mean, sure, you go around, see what you want to see, have your kicks, but sooner or later you're gonna go to Area 51, be disappointed, and then end up deciding to end it for yourself by finding a manual, cold starting an F-35 and flying around in that until eventually just crashing, not bothering to learn how to land. But if you could, you'd have access to all the world's toys forever, at least until maintenance becomes an issue. But then again, you've got nothing but time to learn how to maintain. This is something I think about a lot, and it's because of the fact that I am constantly inundated with recommendations, both in terms of things to play on the channel and just things to watch and see and do in real life. And there's only so many days. You simply can't do it all, and anytime you do something, it means not doing something else. At what point would your mind break if you truly had time to do it all? How much would you retain? People say this a lot when it comes to, like, learning languages. I mean, I would only say that I speak English, but I took language classes, of course, all through school. And sure, some of them just never clicked with me, but at various times I've been learning Russian, Italian, and American Sign Language, and especially Italian and ASL. At one point, I could sorta have a conversation in those languages. Now, don't remember a word, forget about it. Whenever there's a gap in the soundtrack, especially if that gap happens after a loud sound, I'm always left wondering if something's changed. I just realized I've been riding without a flashlight, or not without a flashlight, I just never changed it. Hang on, let's rectify that. Also, I didn't notice it at the time, but I am starting to get a little bit stomach sick. And I think it has to do with using a vehicle. It's just anything that, especially stuff that's stick motion, anytime your view is moving without physically moving your body, I think it takes a toll. Your brain just knows it's not right. And as somebody who is not especially prone to motion sickness, that's like the one thing that'll get me after a little while. Yeah, things are oddly silent. Every time I catch myself thinking about that, here's something to ease me? Sure, we could say that. Oops. Going down these tunnels, watching the shadows pass by us. So often we can marvel about the huge structures around us, really appreciate them when we're here. But every once in a while, something changes, something that narrows our focus. That was Looney Tunes. Yep. Something happens to narrow our focus, and it's like hypnotic. I suppose you could say the entire tone of this mod is hypnotic, or even use that as a synonym for the dreamlike state of it. I think in the beginning I called it like putting your brain into idle mode. There's a comfort in just allowing yourself to rest there, that for some may override the creepy. You know what I've just realized that's a fun little meta thought? I don't know what time it is. It's a cold winter morning. I started this at about 6 a.m. when it was still dark. The sun's probably up by now, but I've not seen it change. I don't even know exactly how long I've been playing. And it's always when a game allows me to sit with my own thoughts for this long that I start having this other thought, which is that, objectively, I'm not talking to you right now. It'll be weeks to up to a month before you actually hear the words I'm saying right now, yet I'm talking to you as if you're here. Objectively, what's happening right now, though, is I'm standing alone in my room. No awareness of my surroundings. Oh, come on. Ow. Well, that did some damage to us. One of the first memories that I have of VR was well before I ever got to try it. My brother went to a New Year's party. I believe we were welcoming 2017. Oh, how little we knew. But anyways, he got to try an Oculus Rift at a party, or maybe it was a Vive. And he described it to me. I was very curious about these things at the time. And he said that the most notable thing was that he doesn't remember playing a VR game. What he remembers is being there. And since I've tried it myself, I have always found that that's true. I forget that I'm in my room when I'm doing stuff like this. That's how good it is. I cannot wait for the Steam frame to come out. It is going to be a day one buy for me. There's a bit of an alternate area if we go to the left, but it's been a while since I'd come this way. Alright, let's look around. So guys, there's something I want to report on right now, just for posterity. I took a break just now. My stomach was completely in knots from driving this thing around so much. And so I took that time to get something to eat, to unload the dishwasher, and all various morning activities. And as I speculated earlier, the sun had come up. In fact, it was like almost 10 a.m., much later than I would have thought. and it was disorienting, and I've spent the last, like, hour or two just sort of feeling drawn back here. Not just because, I've got some work to do, but because this started to feel like normal. I realized there was a comfort in this that I hadn't even fully registered until it was gone. I mean, of course, I talked about how the oppressive atmosphere sort of feels like a blanket in a way. But once you remove that blanket, well, it's almost like a different kind of cold. Like it was a weird state of almost unreality, very much like when you wake up from a dream that was really, really engrossing, I guess is the word, but that doesn't feel right. Okie dokie. I always forget what you have to do here. And I was always thinking you have to move this thing, but I don't think you actually have to. Do you? No. Oh, well, we need to get this thing off, first of all. There's gotta be some way... I always forget what I'm... Oh, this. Yeah, that's all there is to it. It's like there's this whole complicated thing above it, and none of it even really matters. Yep. And we're moving again. Yeah, I definitely needed the time to let myself rest. It's not even acutely motion sickness inducing. It's just a little bit that builds over time. But if there's anything that's been consistent throughout this, it's little feelings that build in the background of your conscious thought. Look at this. Ooh. Hey, look at that! That's something that never really worked in Gary's mod, I don't think. Because reflections always behaved weirdly. Well, it's not a reflection, but you get the idea. Stuff like that always just tended to be the image projected moving alongside my own view. Alright, I gotta get my head for commentary back. Nothing better to clear the mind than a road trip, right? And this is sort of like a road trip. I'm going a little easy on the throttle just to stave off the worst of the engine noises. It's kind of funny how pathetic that was. But still, man, you know that stereotype that men will always look up to see a helicopter going overhead? I will always look up for a bridge, especially if there's a train stopped on that bridge. Oh, I also look up for helicopters. That's another thing. Hello. The green with the white borders on that sign caught my eye. I was like, that was weirdly Western looking. But you know, I've just realized the walls of this place are starting to be less concrete and more cliff. And while there's still plenty of infrastructure out here, it's definitely growing more sparse. The thing about Half-Life 2 is that the Combine occupation almost seems like some kind of intrusive medical intervention. They plug into existing systems on Earth wherever they can, cannibalize parts that are here. But at the same time, there's very many places where there's no use, and so it's just dead. Sometimes immediately adjacent to the things that they are using. Wow, I am really getting thrown around in this airboat seat, aren't I? Alright. Let's hit this as fast as we can. Not as much of a jump as I would have liked, but I guess that is good for my stomach. These linear vehicle segments are actually very enhanced by the virtual reality medium. I mean, there's just so much verticality to look up at, and that sense of three-dimensional space provided by Free Look, well, it definitely helps a lot with, I guess, the sense of connectedness to the world. What's all this over here? I don't remember this. That is a very familiar chime that may have a place here, but I can't help but be a bit weirded out by it. Oh, here's another lambda cache. Whoops. Alright, we're always looking for more for our magnum. I can't tell if we're full or not. Actually, okay, yeah, we can see ammo count by looking at the side. That's neat. One of these days, maybe I will give Half-Life 2 VR a try, but for now, I'm really glad to have this as my first experience. Do you just see that little twitch of the propeller as I got in? Ow. What did I just back into? Oop. Oh right, I forgot. The airboat can turn on a dime. Almost literally. I'm gonna need to push this stuff right out of the way. Low speed into a stack of tires is one of the things that can stop me. Yes, one of the one. Ooh. Okay, whoa! That was crazy, because for a moment, the bars of the airboat were immediately below me, and my brain forgot that I have to push a button to get out. It really felt like I was being ejected from the vehicle, and I was like, well, that's bad. Tell you what's good is the excitement protects me from the crushing loneliness. I also have had a look at the recording up until this point, and it seems, I don't know if it's just because of the grittiness of the environment, but it seems like in places it is a little bit crunchy, so I apologize for that. I am recording in 4K. And the file size is quite huge. First few hours of this alone is like 85 gigs. There's where we're heading. I don't believe I ever did up the flashlight on this. You go from speeding through these big open environments to weaving in and out of debris and old ruins. It's actually crazy how the pace of the game changes with just a few little alterations to the environment, but like using the same mechanics. And I will say that one of the big criticisms I've always had with the airboat section of Half-Life 2 is that it breaks too much for on-land segments, that it never really allows you to just, like, free-run for a while. Well, enough things are opened in Alone that you actually can kind of enjoy it to an extent that you couldn't before. It was always one of my favorite parts of any apocalyptic movie where the characters go on a montage of just doing anything you can do when there's no one to tell you no. Okay, it looks like we're going to be riding just a little bit longer, so I'm going to take this moment to open the... Oh, God. I need to get my head back in the game. This was muscle memory before. Is it working? Yes. Gorm 5. Well, Gorm 5, I'm gonna need you to Gorm open, because I seem to remember this being quite an involved section. No, we can totally just do this right here and now. Oh no, you know what it was? All it is that this was the area where the helicopter fight was. Oh, for a second I was worried we were in another segment where the flashlight had cut out. Oh, hey, look at that! It actually gave us the gun. I hadn't even noticed. That is so cool. I really can't believe how intuitively this plays. Alright. Let's get ourselves up there then. I've got to have my fun where I can, right? Nope. Do not turn on the flashlight in the vicinity of the airboat. Yeah, you better run. There's a bunch of debris floating in the water down there, and as I stared at it, I at first registered it as a bunch of bodies. That was the thing my brain filled in first. We could stand a little bit more suit. Any magnum ammo for us? I'll be honest, I don't even know what it looks like. Oh, I remember now. And I guess we're full. Well, thanks for the pick-me-up. The world's just a bit spooky, isn't it? Hello? And there's our ticket out. You know, not that I would have been able to see him in the dark, but this is one of the moments in the game where you can spot the G-Man. And I've long been torn on whether he should actually be visible or not. On the one hand, it would be really creepy to see a human shape in the distance. But on the other hand, I do sort of appreciate the willingness to let this game just be spooky without having to rely on tropes like that. The only horror is what you imagine for yourself. One of the coolest things about it, after all, is how it'll be a different thing, a horror game or a comfy game, depending on what you came here for. Ugh. Okay, so we're making our way back to where we came from then. Make some noise, let yourself be heard. Whoa, my God. Well, the load screen sort of hitched that a bit, but otherwise that was certainly exciting. Now I'm just imagining some alternate universe, somebody exploring creepy and comfy empty Half-Life maps. And in the distance, they can hear the faint sound of barrels exploding. Well, looks like we're going back inside, which means that it's once more time for us to adjust our flashlight. So let's go ahead and put that to very low and medium. And I've realized we don't actually have to close out of that. We can just use the regular menu close. I find it somewhat funny that any given screenshot from this place could serve as the album cover to whatever album contains these songs. Well, the lights are on for me. I guess that means come in, welcome. It's something that I've always been torn on when it comes to this mod, which is whether there should be any lights on at all. Or whether they should just allow us to explore this almost like an urbex, as someplace that died long ago. To do away with the ambient hum of the ventilation and the lights. On the one hand, there is something fairly unsettling about this place that looks like it just stopped. About how different areas seem like everyone's just gone, and how others look like it's been gone for a while. Here we are in the lab. And the feeling that someone's going to come around the corner, and yet knowing that no one will, is present as it was at Kleiner's. I will admit that there is a certain creepiness in the inconsistency of the abandonment. How some places feel like it's been only moments since people were walking through here, and other places feel like it's been forever, and at the same time, never anywhere are there any signs of decay. Well, except in the Aperture labs, which maybe we'll get through later. I'm not very likely to get to it in this video, but I would very much like to have a marathon of completing Alone again. I just earned achievement toward Voidwalker. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it's for finding, like, hidden new areas. And this is definitely not some place that would have been accessible before. I know that because I have long wanted to explore this place in much more detail. Ooh, we can even go back here. Well, the cameras are still going in their low-res glory. So, out and onward then. There may not be any signs to warn us anymore, but, well, if that tunnel doesn't serve as its own warning, I don't know what does. Seems a fun spot. And it is definitely worth coming this way because we are now the proud owners of the 0-point energy converter, or whatever it was called. That was the wrong button. That's the right button. It's going to take a long time to paint these walls, but we'll have our own white cliffs soon enough. That is so much fun. We toss that up and over. And there's the doghouse. Oh, look at this. Oh, it's dangerous, but I've got to mess with it. All these years later, when most games have something like this, it's easy to forget how much of a physics playground this was. And there are so many things throughout the game that are just there to show it off. I count it. Dog, is your ball here? I'm not seeing it. Doesn't he grab it from somewhere? I don't quite remember. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that we're able to take all this stuff and go forward because, as we learned, it is very, very possible to miss a weapon. I'm pretty sure I was supposed to have the pistol. Okay, there's nothing to see up there except for the HEV container. An old artifact from Half-Life 1, I believe. Something I've always liked about Half-Life 2's character writing when it came to, like, Kleiner and Eli is how they definitely talk like old MIT colleagues, you know? Like, they're the resistance. They've been forced into these extraordinary circumstances, but they always come across as just giant nerds who were placed here by circumstance. They would rather be, well, they would rather be being nerds with each other over some projects. Okay, so maybe there are some signs. Please don't scare me, barrels. We're already going into the scariest part of the game. Oh wait, what am I bothering with my hands for? That's right. That wall seems like it could be breakable. A lot of things look breakable around here. For example, my bones. Oh, come on. I can fall from 10 feet up and land on a box and it's fine, but I'm so fat that this is crumbling under my weight. Okay, we got this. Oh. You know, it's not until you're physically here that you realize, man, Gordon really does just climb around unsecured on some ludicrously tall ladders, doesn't he? We're still going. No, I'm not a fan of heights. Oh my god, and I'm even less a fan here. As it turns out, we do go to Ravenholm. And funnily enough, this place just feels kinda normal, if a bit old and out of place compared to everything we've been through up until now. Ravenholm always stood out as being the horror segment of Half-Life 2. But I guess all things are equal in emptiness. Well, maybe it's a bit more visceral than other places as well. Everywhere else, the blood was just a reminder of violence, a reminder of unsafety, and an unspecific threat at the same time. Well, here it's just the remains of a massacre. But again, an unspecific one, because it's not like there are any bodies in the meantime. I remember having so much fun using everything in here as a weapon. Whoa. When I got my Steam account all the way back in 2007, the first thing that was installed to it was the demo for Half-Life 2, and it ran like absolute garbage, but I still remember being so impressed by all this. I think the demo included getting off the train at City 17, and then transitioned immediately into this. These were like the two areas that were available. I can push that blade aside. Oh, wow. This would be so stupid to try. I wonder if I can actually, like, slap this thing hard enough to spin back around and chop me in half. No. I'm not able to even reach that far. My body box collides with it before then. Don't know my own strength! These inconsistent interactions are very strange. They don't ruin anything by any stretch. Yep. And you know, not for nothing, but I'm sort of wondering now. Why has the music gone so silent? Unless... Wait, have we actually reached the end? Hang on, play playlist from start. It honestly seemed like one of those things that I would never reach the end of. There are just so many songs now. It's this place. It's so easy when you played video games for long enough to break things down and just see areas as an arena or as a set piece. The cool thing about playing in VR is that it allows you to place yourself in it, and in doing so, see them as an area, like a real place where people might have lived and worked. And it allows the horror of the setting to come across all the more. Okay, here's where we could use some damage. That is not the optimal amount of damage, but we can easily get it. Come on, break. That's what we want. rain of debris. Oddly enough, I haven't hurt myself doing all this. Hey, look at that. I think I might have found this last time. There's a little vent above that generator. The paint's still wet. No more power means no more need to shut this off. But we still have something we can go see. Come on, let me in. I don't know how much lower I can go. It's not even just a massacre scene, it's a butcher shop. The harsh piano in the soundtrack is weirdly directional. This might just be a me thing, but low-tone pianos in the background of a dark track never fail to set me on edge. There's just something about it that sets the hair on the back of my neck on end. There was a track like that in it was Anthology of the Killer. And it just made me so uncomfortable in what was definitely meant to be an uncomfortable, but otherwise pretty goofy game. Whatever happened here is over now, but it definitely still feels like this place is touched in some way. And I think that's what a haunting really is more than anything, right? Okay, what we need is to be on top of you when you start rising. Preferably not under you when you start falling. I see. You'll raise up on your own. Hearing that door close so soon was not what I wanted to hear when entering this hallway. For a moment, that actually did feel like maybe something was behind me. can't get through. Is there glass on this? There's glass on this. I just got golden retrievered. Come on. Oh my god. Thank you. Oop. Ow. Suit didn't absorb that one. You know, it's not just the low contrast of the distant buildings in the moonlight. I've come to realize that some of the soundtracks remind me a bit of 28 Days Later as well. While that movie wasn't exactly empty, it was a lot emptier than you'd expect for a zombie movie. But then again, that movie was a lot of things you wouldn't expect for a zombie movie. Whoa. Had a little bit of a bounce there. With the right music and the right environment, it gives me a feeling of dread, like I'm approaching something. Like I should already know what's going to be around the corner. But like a recurring nightmare, I'm doomed to make the same mistake every time. This thing, when you play it all through in almost one uninterrupted sitting like this, it starts to get to you after a while. Which is why it was such a strange observation that I found myself wanting to come back, almost having a hard time being without it when I didn't have it. There was something about it that was just like, alright, put me back in. To be fair, I'm the same way about waking up from sleep. You know, sleeping I feel is always better than not sleeping. Even when you're being chased by a monster, there's way less to worry about. Maybe that's part of it. On the one hand, you have something very, very big to worry about, but you don't have anything else to worry about, nothing real. What am I doing here? Where does one go from here? I'm not seeing anywhere I can make it. Through here, perhaps. Through here. Now, for the most part, the lighting in Ravenholm is about the same as it was in base Half-Life 2. And so it's why around these parts I start thinking about how it might be better if the lights were off. But I don't know. It's probably not possible to make that optional. From what I know about Hammer, it would probably be necessary to make it basically a whole separate set of maps, right? The Lights Out campaign? Full. We need any health? We do. Now, all those little errant jumps that you see, those are because, again, it's all bound to the same stick, but it probably seems when I'm turning around and it happens like I'm just an excited little guy. Look at those lights falling over those smokestacks. It's actually the morning sun peeking up over the horizon, but again, that morning sun just never seems to arrive fully. I never noticed that building with the tower over there, the bell tower. Sort of reminds me of an old painting. Alright, we're gonna have to cowabunga this, dudes. Okay, how are we doing this one then? There's gotta be some good way down, right? Ah, that'll help. Well, if this whole mod was an excuse to stop and reflect, waiting for an elevator certainly is. I do like the natural light that falls over all of this, or at least what's supposed to be natural light. Or is it? Is it coming in from... Oh, no, it's not. Well, regardless, I guess what I'm learning about this is that indirect light feels better in this situation than direct light. It's less harsh on the eyes, there's more reflections off of surfaces to give them a little bit of a hue. But for the most part, light directly into the eyes just means focus. It's grating. And really, we want anything that allows us to just drift and not think. Really, I think sometimes we just need time to feel quietly bad. Oddly enough, something feels good about that. Come on. Come. Really? Come on. Well, I was gonna say, it seems our journey's at an end. There's simply no way around this. Hey, a shotgun. I'll never say no to a shotgun. I know that we can open this door from the other side later, but this area has always given me such a bad feeling. I mean, not only the implication that somebody was violently taken from their bed when all this happened at once, but being able to peek through and see a brick wall immediately on the other side. It seems out of place for the inside of this building, and it almost seems like it's inviting us to get just a little bit closer. I always get startled by the sound of all these physics objects loading in the moment I pass into a new area. My God. I was not ready for movement in that moment. Do you see what I mean? It's like I said earlier. The longer you go with no scares at all, the more you don't even expect them, the more it takes you absolutely off guard. You don't realize the tension that's been building. It's a very different feeling from games that deliberately build tension by withholding scares. Okay, so where to from here? I may not remember exactly where to go, but I do remember this trench being a bad place. I actually always remember there being tall grass down here, but I think what I realize now is that it wasn't tall grass. It was just several poison head crab zombies. Look at that, I don't even need no plank. I wouldn't trust that, not whatsoever. Does that look secure to you? No, it doesn't. But we're a bit of a madman here, aren't we? And there's that funeral song again. You know what might be some of my earliest exposures to feelings like this? It could just be the associated nostalgia I have. Like I said, that VHS distortion of a song like this, even if it's not really there. Do you remember those Adult Swim bumpers that would air in the early 2000s? I mean, for all I know, they still do it. But sometimes they would just show, like, an old street or some power lines at night with a cloudy, overcast sky. And there would be a song very much like this one. I have heard that the intention was always to basically scare off any kids that were still up. Never worked on me. I just found it moody and oddly relaxing. But the thing is, I think maybe part of this generation's desire to have these things, and I guess comfort in these moods, is being exposed to those things at a time when we couldn't really process exactly what we were feeling. And so later on, when we're more capable of understanding, we come back with a sense of curiosity about it. We've made it to the other side. Although it's not opening for us now. I think that's the sign to just move on then. My flashlight feels like it's being especially flickery today. I'm always off-put by how much more exploration potential there is. It feels like I'm doing something wrong. Okay. If I can make that railing... Oh, we actually did manage to prevent some damage. That shadowy area under the stairs. I felt pulled to go look, like something was waiting there for me. Now, my every YouTuber instinct is telling me, for retention, you need to keep talking. You never want the audience to feel like they've been abandoned, and to an extent I'll keep that up. But, you know, I think if you're tuning in for something like this, for as long as this video is going to be, you kind of know what you're getting into. And it is a mod that in a lot of ways speaks for itself. I mean, I'm trying to put a voice to what it makes me feel as I'm going, but I'm also not going to push myself to talk when I don't have anything to say. And so I think already there's been like a lot more silence than is typical of a librarian video. But sometimes it really is just the best thing. Tread lightly, brother, for this is hallowed ground. It feels wrong almost coming through here with no guide. I don't even remember this light over here or the path. I just remember following Father Grigori. And you know, a thought occurs when entering a graveyard. With everyone gone, not a trace but for the blood. Would we find any bodies if we were to exhume these graves? Are they gone too? I'm turning off my light now, but if I remember this area correctly, we're gonna need it again very soon. Such a strange structure, isn't it? A mine entrance straight down, inside a building, in the middle of a town. Okay, this ain't the easiest platforming in the world. Oh my god! Especially not in VR! Well, it saves me some trouble, I guess. See, once again, Dr. Freeman has done the cat math. Even if I myself haven't. Down we go. This place may not be alive, but the soundtrack is starting to reanimate it, it seems. I guess I'm alert for anything that sounds like a distant moan. Oh my god. Don't do that, game. Whoa. I can't help but be reminded of the fact that I just played Silent Hill 2. Oh, cowbunga. Once again, I'm such a weird fan of that uncharacteristic slow sync. Hey, the danger that's usually here isn't still gonna be here this time around, is it? Keep a very close eye on the top of those tracks.